This was my face pretty much throughout the episode, but especially when Francesca tried to blame Rachel for her screw-up. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today I'm super excited to be talking Below Deck Season 8, Episode 15. Don't Cry for Me, Antigua. You guys, I can't believe next week's the season finale. I haven't heard for sure if they're doing a reunion. I assume they're doing some sort of Zoom reunion. We'll see. Yeah, it was kind of a whimper of an episode. We're going to get into it. It reaffirmed my dislike of Francesca. I see that that's trending on Twitter. And to that I say, haha, I told you guys she sucked. All right, let's get into the episode. Hey guys, I just want to take a second and say if you're enjoying this show, please check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Real Housewives Recaps, or check the comments below and I'll put a link. And for $1 a week, you can support my show and get 4 bonus episodes per month. I'm covering Scary Island, like the greatest season of Real Housewives of New York. So check it out. Thanks so much. Okay, so we pick up with the first night of charter. Remember, we have the Queen of Versailles and her family on, and that horrible, douchey, spoiled brat that we're going to talk about, Daniel. He's staying up, he's wasted, he's being a dick to the crew. Ashling's worried about the tip and getting in trouble because she finally just has to send him to bed. And good for her for doing that because he's awful. Speaking of awful, James is following Aisling around and calls her adorable. He's just so gross. I'm not a fan of Elizabeth, believe me, but James is so gross. He just gives me a visceral reaction. Ugh. I hope every woman sees this and he never dates again. So it's the next morning, and it's absolutely gorgeous there in Antigua. I'm completely jealous, and I really want to go. Okay, second day of charter. Elizabeth says that yesterday was the worst day ever. No acknowledgement from James for her birthday, and she almost got fired. Oh, Elizabeth, we're going to talk about you. Head in the clouds is the biggest understatement ever. I've never seen anybody quite this clueless before. It's kind of shocking. Jackie's up at 7:30. Only Rob is there to greet her. Believe me, I have things to say about Rob, too. We'll get into that. And Rachel is pissed at Francesca. She's saying the Chief Stew should be troubleshooting. And I kind of felt the same way. Why wasn't she out to greet the guests? I'm a little surprised, like, somebody didn't page her to let her know that Jackie was up and she should have been on this stuff. I just think Francesca's the worst. Okay. So Izzy's going over what needs to be done. She talks about the day. Rob says, hello, I'm here to state the obvious. Let's talk about Rob. What the hell's up with Rob? Why did he become like super awful, disgusting guy so quick? He went from this dorky, no personality guy who's just kind of hanging off to the side and barely, vaguely hitting on Francesca to the super douchey guy. I just don't understand it. What's his deal? Like, he just seems like he just has no respect for Izzy at all. And it's so gross. It's gross to watch. What the hell is with these fuckboys? I'm sorry, but seriously, what is with it? I can't believe Eddie's the hero. And I do like how Eddie handled things, and I like him a lot this season. I recently kind of rewatched a little bit of his old season where he was not as likable. So it's interesting to see the switch. But I do like him this season. Anyway, it's so much to talk about. Okay, so Captain Lee is pulling up the news, and he's saying there's 938 cases in the U.S., 29 deaths. And it's like, oh, man, to go back to those numbers would be nice because, what a rough year. Okay. No cases on the island, but they are worried about getting stuck there. So Rachel's all hopped up on espresso. I like it when Rachel's hopped up on espresso. I find her funny. Let's talk about all the ways that Francesca sucks, shall we? I've been saying this for weeks, you guys. I think a lot of you guys agree, but I did catch some flack at the beginning, to which I say, you're welcome. Or I accept your apology because I was completely right. She sucks. So we see Rachel asking her repeatedly for the freezer bag. She's kind of at one point carrying it and then walks off with him. And I'd be pissed if I was Rachel. I get why Rachel's so pissed. Rachel works so hard on this food. Believe me, Rachel has her own issues too. But she works so hard on this food. She's the best chef they've ever had, hands down. Everybody talks about how insanely good her food is. She works so hard on this to have things like ketchup not be included. And knowing that all her hard work will be forgotten because all the guests will focus on is the lack of ketchup. That sucks. Not letting her food spoil because Francesca is saying, I'm busy on the radio, which, by the way, I thought that was so rude. If Elizabeth had done that to Francesca, I mean, can you imagine? She'd hit the roof. I understand Elizabeth is Francesca's Francesca's her superior, but just the principle of the thing. Somebody's asking for help and you say, I'm busy. Fuck off. Okay. But Francesca just continues to miscommunicate. We see it from everything from the freezer bags to the ketchup to the when the captain is joining the guests for dinner, she doesn't tell Rachel. Instead, she just talks about it on the radio. Like, I remember this being a plot point, I believe, with Ben, where he hit the roof because he wasn't told. And I get why. I'd hit the roof too. He wasn't told that the captain was joining. You got to tell the chefs that sort of thing. You can't just spring it on them. They have to make the meal and make it special. Anyway, Francesca sucks. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm glad everybody's finally seeing it. That was like the top of my trending Twitter this morning is everybody was saying Francesca sucks. To which I say, welcome to my party. I've been saying this for a month. Oh, gosh. I really like Aisling. I thought she was fantastic. She handled herself so well in this situation. She was clear, she was level-headed, she calmly explained why she cut off that stupid brat of a charter guest who was whining, they made me go to bed, they wouldn't let me jump in the water, meh, they lied to me about the hot tub. Yeah, MFer, they saved your life. You were blackout drunk trying to get into water. Imagine why that wouldn't be a good idea. So she handled herself well. All I have to say here again is Francesca sucks. So what if it had been Elizabeth? Francesca would have used that against her too. So it is definitely a double standard going on here. But again, I'm not team Elizabeth. She sucks too. She does need to go. She needed to go like 6 charters ago. It would have saved her the embarrassment of hooking up with James. Ugh. But, God, I lost my train of thought. Okay, Aisling, she's fantastic. I really like her. Somebody suggested they bring her on as Chief Stew next season. I'm here for that. That's a great idea. Bring Rachel back as the chef. I'm here for that too. These guests are absolutely awful. They're talking about Corona. They don't know what they're talking about. I don't even want to talk about them. They suck. Get them off the boat. Hate the kids. Okay, so going back, I talked over an important part of this episode. Rachel, when she asks about freezer bags, then tells Francesca that they, meaning the interior, needs to bring ketchup, mustard, relish, and kraut. Now, I will say it was a little unclear. I took it the way Rachel said it, but I'm also a big fan of Rachel. I understood her to say, I will handle my condiments, you bring the general stuff, like ketchup, mustard, everything else. They even flash back to this moment later, and is that how you guys took it? Because that's how I took it. I'm trying not to let my hatred of Francesca cloud my gut judgment. I will admit it was a little cloudy, the way they both said it, but that's how I understood it. Of course, Francesca completely drops the ball, doesn't bring it. Izzy's a hero, we'll talk about that. So Francesca tells Elizabeth she will stay on the boat. Elizabeth is like, surprise, surprise. So the guests are talking about all their plans spoiled by Corona. Oh, poor guys. How can you handle it? Rachel's pissed, still asking for cooler bags. Francesca's telling Eddie, but not Rachel, about this picnic. So Rachel's getting more pissed, which I get. Again, she's a chef. She needs to know this stuff. Francesca, for some reason, communicates with Eddie, but not Rachel. We've seen it in the past, even when, let's say, like shitbag Leon, the worst chef ever, that was serving beef cheeks over and over, was having his fight with Kate. She was still communicating with him. Frank can't even do that. Rachel asking over and over for help. Francesca, that's where she says, I'm busy. Ugh. Eddie says Rachel's not happier with the interior crew. Okay, so the guests have to go over to the island. There's like a hour car ride. Daniel's complaining the whole time about the car ride, and it's not luxurious, and there's poor planning. I say, drop that asshole off on the island. Lee's back on the boat saying, you're kidding me. And Elizabeth isn't delivering because he's looking around seeing the dishes. Maybe her energy is broken again. And I say, that's pretty good. Lee calls her and asks her to knock out the pots and pans so that way Rachel has a clean galley coming back. Reasonable request. Elizabeth does seem to be working. I dragged that out because she was sitting, or she wasn't sitting, she was working, but James was sitting. Weird how nobody's calling James on the not working. Eddie and Lee are in the wheelhouse. 2 more charters after this. Elizabeth saying she's stressed about Francesca. And also James is being really weird. I'd say that's his personality. James sucks. Should have moved on from him. He's the worst. I'll admit, when I first saw him, I thought he was good looking. But the moment he opens his mouth, you realize what he is. And you have to get away from that. Ugh. I have a visceral reaction to James. He sucks. Drop him and that kid off on the island. All right, Elizabeth asks Captain if she can go down the slide when she gets her break. He's like, yeah, no problem, as long as you get your stuff done. That looks so fun to me. Guests playing with stingrays. All I can think about is a crocodile hunter. Ugh. So I hate these big stingrays. It really freaks me out. Elizabeth swimming. Eddie says, your girlfriend's weird, bro, to James. And he's like, she's not my girlfriend. Eddie says that she's named their first child Crystal Good Vibes. I thought that was pretty funny. Let's see. So then we see Izzy saying that they need to blow up the Versace ring. Rob, being a dick, is like, we should just hide it. And Izzy's like, no, she specifically asked for this. We have to blow it up. Again, what's Rob's problem? Is it because a female's over him? Is it he just doesn't respect Izzy? Does he just not give an S about anything? What am I missing here? I just think he sucks. So the guests arrive. We see that primary with his styrofoam teacup, to which I wrote in my notes, ew. Is that the same one he got on the boat with? Ugh. So Francesca's saying, this one's for honey, and this is for your chilies. Rachel says, did you guys bring ketchup and all that too? And Fran says, no, you were going to bring that. Rachel's like, oh, okay. And when she said that so calmly, I got a chill up my spine. I was like, oh, it's on now. Rachel says, I thought you were bringing that stuff. I was bringing my own condiments. So again, we see a flashback. That's how I took it too. I will admit that it's a little bit murky, but I do think Rachel's completely in the right. I think Francesca sucks. Leave her on the island too. Francesca to camera says, Rachel can admit when she's wrong. I've been walking on eggshells around her. F this, I'm over it. To which I say, hello? Isn't that what you're doing to Elizabeth? You can't admit when you're wrong, and she's been walking on eggshells around you. Again, Elizabeth sucks too. But it is kind of ironic. So Rachel told Francesca to bring that stuff. We see the flashback. Izzy says she'll run over to Stingray City to see if they have any ketchup. Izzy saves the day. She's fantastic. So they try to stall the guests a little bit, and they get him to pet these tortoises. Izzy's a superstar. She is able to find the ketchup. Francesca's complaining to Aisling that Rachel shifted the blame onto her. Again, pot, kettle, you're black. Aisling says it's awkward and intense right now. It is. Francesca's making it awkward. Even if, who cares who screwed up? I mean, I'm just saying, like, do we have to have this conversation right here with the guests, like, a foot away? So the guests enjoy their meal. I can't even remember. It's like some fancy tuna and hot dogs. It made no sense to me. But not Rachel's fault. Sounds like the guests are insane. Let's see. They go back to the boat. And Rob tells James everything went according to plan. But Izzy micromanaged a little bit. We see a flashback. No, she didn't. She just asked you to clean up a messy glass and help blow up an inflatable. That's not micromanaging. We see later that he sits around, ignores his radio, and has like breath holding contests. So anybody that acts like a little kid probably should be micromanaged. He says things were working really well before. Again, what a disgusting creep. Ugh, he's gross. Leave him on the island too. Is anybody left on this boat? Okay. Rachel's trying to tell Francesca about dinner. Francesca's not listening and says, I understand what that means about the silver service. Rachel's just trying to talk to her. I don't think she's being aggressive. I think Fran's being aggressive. Then Izzy tells Eddie about how Rob has been really passive aggressive. She asked him how he feels about it, talking about Rob, and if he's upset that she got lead deckhand or something like that. And he says, nope, you got lead chamois. Not much has changed. So she asks for Eddie's advice on how to handle it. And I got to say, I like Eddie. I do. I like him this season. He says, dude, what the F is your problem? And to let him know if it continues. Eddie says Izzy is an extension of him. Again, I say, that's a great way to handle it. He tried to empower Izzy, but says if Rob's still being a dick, let him know. He'll take care of it. So I thought that was pretty good. All right. So the guests invite Captain to dinner. Again, we see where Francesca sucks. Instead of telling Rachel, hey, Captain's coming to dinner, she pages the Captain and doesn't talk to Rachel at all. And Rachel's like, oh, well, that's great. Then we see her paging the Captain to let them know that the guests are sitting down at the table. And then again, Rachel says, you got to let me know that they're sitting down. So again, Francesca is just not communicating whatsoever. Okay. I'm going to say something controversial. Stick with me here. I just wanted to see if you're on the same page with me. Look at the Queen of Versailles. I hate even calling her that. Look at this smile. Do you get that Britney Spears vibe from her? Because I do. Where something's just a little bit wrong. You want to like her, maybe not. Okay, you want to like Britney Spears, not so much Queen of Versailles. But there's something wrong with the smile. There's something not present behind the eyes. We'll leave it there. She's wearing her sash and a crown, as you do. She's handing out crowns to the interior. She ends up bringing one down to Rachel. Rachel explains the Queen of Versailles likes very spicy food, whereas her husband likes more traditional American steakhouse. So she's going to do this family-style meal, which, by the way, looks delicious. I want to dive face first into that pineapple rice. But she says she's doing it family-style so Fran doesn't screw it up. Let's talk about fuckboy James. He is so awful. He's being distant, and he's doing that thing where he thinks if he's distant, then she'll break up with him, and that's it. I would like to remind everybody that he's the one that, didn't he call her his girlfriend pretty early on and came on strong with her and pursued it, but then as soon as he got what he wanted, he's like, nah, I'm not into it. And even a producer's like, why don't you just tell her how you feel? And he's like, she'll figure it out. I just think that's so gross. He's making himself look disgusting. Her head is in the clouds, and she probably should figure it out quicker, but still, I blame him for this because he sent all these mixed signals, and he boned her, so didn't he? So, if nothing else, they pulled her out of bed. So, hello, what? Are you surprised she caught feelings? Ugh. Anyway, she's saying, I don't believe in long distance relationships. So for a second, he's excited, and then she's like, so I can travel, meaning I'll come to you, and it's romantic, and he says he's trapped in this conversation. So again, instead of being an adult about it and just nipping in the bud and telling her how he feels, he's dragging it out and being vague. What he doesn't realize, because he's an idiot, is he's making himself look so much worse than if he just put a stop to it right there. He doesn't seem to care. He only cares about himself. He's disgusting. Aisling goes down to get some coconuts and sees Elizabeth sitting and talking to James, and she's fed up, and I get it. She's saying, get your shit together. That would suck. You're working your A off. You see this. I'd be frustrated too. Again, I think Aisling's a star. She has to work with shitty Francesca, who she seems to like for whatever reason, but she also has to work with shitty Elizabeth. She's stuck in the middle. She's also stuck with the Rachel thing. She's a star. Everybody else sucks. So Elizabeth is doing dishes. She stops to talk to James and says, "Can you tell me what we are?" He doesn't answer. He says usually he doesn't have these conversations 3 or 4 months in. Again, he's just being gross and vague, and she's confused, and she says, "I can't do this vague shit anymore. I want to know your intentions." And Francesca is starting to get annoyed. This I get. Normally Francesca sucks. I don't understand where she's coming from. This time I do. What the heck? You're going to have a conversation about your feelings when there's like 1,000 dishes piled up and service is running? So they continue to talk. They're ignoring Francesca. Francesca gets annoyed. She separates them. Probably the best possible scenario. So then we see the guests go to bed. It's the next day. It's the very last day of charter. So Izzy tells Rachel that they'll get a cake and some candles for Elizabeth at dinner. No one deserves to have a crappy birthday. The guests eat. They get ready. Not much happens here. They're getting packed. They're getting ready to leave. It's pretty uneventful. They pull into the dock. Nothing happens. As the guests are leaving, Jackie invites them to tour Versailles. Then she says it's the best vacation she and her husband have taken. So we go into the tip meeting, and shocker, they're cheap. They left an $18,000 tip, which translates to $1,500 a piece. Not the highest we've seen, not the lowest we've seen. Not great. James is like, "Oh, they've got money. What happened?" So normally I think they sound whiny when they whine about tips, but in this case I get it. The kids especially were awful, and they brag about how much money they have, so it's kind of a slap in the face. Not giving them a bigger tip, but whatever. Lee says Rachel and Francesca need to go over things communication-wise. Francesca says, the captain says to Francesca, "I need to see you in the bridge when this is finished." Izzy pages Rob. He's playing hold his breath game with James because they are children. So we see Rachel talking about the horrible service. She's talking to Elizabeth about how much Francesca sucks at her job. And then we see Francesca saying, "This is the last day for you, Elizabeth." So we know it's coming to a head. So the captain calls Francesca in, and he says to her, "Where's your head at with all this Elizabeth stuff?" Francesca says there's been way too many slip-ups, and he says he has someone lined up to be a stew, but the travel restriction made it hard, and they may have to go into the next charter down a person. Francesca is like, "We don't have a choice." And so they page Elizabeth, and Francesca tells her, "Listen, every charter I'm continually having to check up on you, and sleeping in the guest cabin was like the final straw. They've come to a decision to let you go." Now, Elizabeth is shocked. And when I say shocked, I mean, you would think that this was just the biggest shock of her whole life. Again, head in the clouds. What is happening? You know you've had problems with Francesca. Even if you don't agree with Francesca, this isn't that big of a shock. Her face did not make sense in this scenario. We see a preview of the season finale. Rachel is upset about service, so I'm sure that's going to come to a head. Elizabeth is crying to Francesca. Francesca is being a cold bitch, saying, "Don't touch me." So again, that's not going to go well at all. We see Rob continuing to be a jerk because that's his MO. That's what he does. And then it sounds like it's going to come to a head about Corona. They're finding out more and more about it spreading, and Lee pages everybody to talk. So obviously, being the season finale, this is where we're going to leave off. So that's it. That's it for the episode. I went on for a long time on this one because I had to get my thoughts out, and you guys are the best. I just love talking about this stuff with you guys. I appreciate all the support, all the wonderful comments. I really do. You guys are amazing. You guys get me. You guys have the same love of this stuff that I do, and I appreciate that. I should say the same love and sometimes hate, and I get that too. But thank you guys for everything. Everybody, just really appreciate everything. I've had a lot of new Patreons sign up. Thank you for that. Jump on over there. It's $1 a week, $4 a month. Get you 4 bonus episodes. I'm working on Real Housewives of New York, where they go to Morocco, and it's hilarious. But after that, I think I'm going to jump over and maybe do that season 3 of Below Deck, the greatest season of Below Deck, where they have Rocky and just all the craziness that ensues. So thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it. Stay with me. Check back. I have lots of shows going up. Everybody stay safe and healthy and have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.